everybody, and welcome to today's program, Managing Anxiety Through Ayurveda. I want to take a moment to welcome you all here. As we've just turned on the camera, we'll wait for a few minutes to actually begin the program, and I will chant the Gayatri Mantra. Om Bhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Argo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yunha Prachodayat. Om Bhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Argo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yunha Prachodayat. Om Bhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Argo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yunha Prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace Peace. So many blessings to all of you, and welcome to today's program, Managing Insomnia Through Ayurveda. And we'll be taking some time today to explore this from a Ayurvedic perspective. And hopefully for those of you that have been suffering with insomnia, or if you do in the future suffer with insomnia, this will be able to give you some guidance and some help on your journey to rest well and to heal yourself. I'd like to take a moment and thank Priya and Wendy, who have just joined the program. I know more people will be coming in as we get started. I want to begin just by expressing, hi Erin, hi to you too. I want to begin just by expressing how large of a challenge that this is for many people. First of all, about a third of the population does not sleep well. So that alone should really give you pause to think about how serious this challenge can be. Sleeping well means that you're getting about 7 hours of sleep a night. That's what the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, says should be a healthy night's sleep, healthy rest. And if you do that, you'll be a lot healthier, a lot happier. But a third of the United States does not have that happen. Worldwide, I don't have the statistics, but I'm sure it's an epidemic challenge all over the world. And about 25% of the population actually develops actual insomnia each year, which means a hard time falling asleep or waking up in the middle of the night. And so that's not just not getting enough sleep, that's actually, there's something going on. There's something going on. It's not that we're just too busy to sleep. There's something going on inside of us that's preventing us from sleeping. And about 10% have chronic insomnia. So chronic insomnia means that this is an ongoing experience for you. So think about that. Here in the United States, that's tens of millions of people that have an ongoing challenge sleeping. If we were to give a definition of that, maybe more than a month. It's been going on for more than a month. And that's a long time. And for most people, it's going on for years. Now, I do want you to know that there's a tremendous amount that you can do in order to help yourself, and that you can recover from insomnia. And in fact, I have. So I want to just begin and take a moment to tell you about my own journey. Back in 1987, when I was crippled with Lyme disease, which upset the functioning of my nervous system, my brain, and my immune system, I didn't sleep for about 7 years. I didn't sleep from about 1987 to 1994. And when I say that I didn't sleep, of course I slept an hour here, half an hour there, but it upset the rhythms of my body so dramatically that I was unable to get a good night's sleep. In fact, I didn't really sleep at all. And so that was a great challenge for me. And my journey over that 7 years period was really one of keeping myself healthy because I wasn't sleeping, and also trying to get to the root of the challenge. So we're going to get to that a little bit more. I want to welcome Sonia and Barbara, Prakar and Jyoti to the program today, who just signed on. Welcome, and I'm happy that you're here, and happy that honored, truly, that you're taking the time during your day to listen to Facebook Live. I do want to let you all know I will be taking questions. I have an assistant who is going to be monitoring, and if you have any questions that come up for you, you can type them in where most of you have said good morning. And I will, toward the end of the talk, just go through some questions, all right, that you have that might help you personally. So you're welcome to ask those questions. I also want to just define a couple of terms. Acute insomnia is a brief episode of insomnia, and I think probably everybody gets acute insomnia at some point. You know, there's something going on in your life that is troubling your mind, and everybody gets acute insomnia at some point. Chronic insomnia, as I said before, has really been going on for more than a month. This is now a chronic challenge for you, and for many people, it's an ongoing problem for many, many years. There's another condition called, we could classify it as comorbid insomnia, technically. What that means is you have insomnia, but there's a good reason for it. There's something else going on. It's not just a challenged mind, and I say just, that doesn't diminish it. It's not a challenged mind. There's some other pathology that's present. So maybe a person has pain. They're unable to sleep because they're in pain. Pain in their neck, pain in their back, pain in their shoulders. That's another kind of an insomnia. Comorbid insomnia. It means there's something else going on. All right, so we may have some time to talk about some of those too. You may have some questions about what's going on with you. And there's onset insomnia, which is the challenge, falling asleep, and early morning awakening. Early morning awakening is some of you know what I'm talking about. You wake up at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, or 4 in the morning, and you can't go back to sleep. And you toss and you turn, you toss and you turn. You fall asleep easily because you're exhausted, but then something is waking you up. Your physiology is shifting in the middle of the night. It's another challenge for people, another kind of insomnia. And so we'll address that as well. Why is it important to sleep well? Well, if you're not sleeping well, Ayurveda says that sleep and rest is one of the 3 pillars of life. One of the pillars of life is to digest well. You have to digest your food well. Another pillar of life is to get enough rest. And another pillar of life, interestingly, and we'll have another Facebook Live session on this eventually, is to utilize your sexual energy properly. And that's another pillar. And if you have any of these pillars disturbed from an Ayurvedic perspective, then you're going to suffer in terms of your health and your well-being. And Western science has validated that. So Western science has validated that if you are not getting enough sleep, you don't, for instance, regulate your blood sugar levels well enough. If you are not getting enough sleep, you're going to have more accidents. That's another documented fact about not sleeping. You get more illness, you get more accidents, and your whole quality of life changes. Your relationships are going to suffer, your work is going to suffer, you're more likely to struggle at work, you're more likely to get fired, you're more likely to have difficulty sustaining your family, all these challenges because you're not sleeping. And I have all the compassion in the world for you. I truly do if you're experiencing chronic insomnia. Again, I experienced it for 7 years, and I understand that it is overwhelmingly challenging. You get used to the idea, well, I'm just a person that doesn't sleep. But I also want to tell you that it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. We're going to explore how to manage your anxiety. How, I've worked with thousands of patients over the years. So I'm going to talk to you about how I help my patients manage anxiety. But this is personal to me, so I'm going to share with you a little bit about how I did as well. All right. I just want to take a moment and welcome many of the people that have been joining the program that I haven't been able to say hello to. Kathleen, Jocelyn, Alicia, welcome. Honored that you're here. Martina and Nina, I'd just like to welcome you as well. I know that you have busy lives. I'm honored that you're taking the time to listen to a program on your health and on your well-being. So let's go into it a little bit more now from an Ayurvedic perspective. By the way, today's program will be about 30 minutes, and the last 10 minutes will be your questions. So again, if you just came in, please prepare your questions. You can type them in at any time, and my assistant will be writing them down, all right, and then I'll be addressing them. So how do we look at it then from an Ayurvedic perspective? We talked about the statistics, we've talked about some of the definitions and how big of a problem this is. We know what the consequences are. How do we look at it? How do we understand it from an Ayurvedic perspective? Well, there's not just one understanding. You probably aren't surprised about that. Ayurveda understands that everyone is unique. Likewise, every illness is unique. Every illness has its own pathology in terms of how the doshas have become disturbed in the body or in the mind. So two people with insomnia do not have the same condition, and therefore two people with insomnia will not find the same remedy helps them. And that's an important concept to know. There is no one medicine to help everybody. There is no one program to help everybody. Not everybody should do this or everybody should do that. Anytime you hear an Ayurvedic practitioner say everybody should do this, a red flag should go up in your mind and say that's not Ayurveda, because Ayurveda understands that everyone is unique and everyone's path toward optimum health is also unique. So let's talk about what happens inside of you. Most people in the world of Ayurveda, when they think about insomnia, they think about a Vata imbalance. Vata is the elemental energies of air and ether, and its main function in the body is to produce motion. Its main function in the mind is to produce motion. Well, when there's too much motion in the body and in the mind, it becomes difficult to sleep. So a mind that you can't turn off, motion in the mind is thoughts that are obsessive, that go around and around and around, or thoughts that you just can't control. Emotions that you can't control, these tend to be a disturbance of the Vata dosha. So we could say that a person with insomnia who is being kept up at night by their thoughts, being kept up at night by their feelings, probably has a Vata imbalance. And that's true. That is probably true. And it is vastly the majority of the challenges that people have. And it doesn't only affect the mind, it can affect the body. So many people are staying awake at night because their body is restless. They can't get still. They can't quiet the body down. A good example of that is restless leg syndrome. Restless leg syndrome, a Vata imbalance within the nervous system that is, again, the body just can't shut it down. It can't go into a dormant state so that you're able to sleep. So the body can be restless. The mind certainly is restless with many cases of insomnia. So we can think about it as a Vata imbalance. Now, you may know that I did a whole Facebook Live program on how to balance the Vata dosha, and certainly everything that I said there applies here too. But I will get into some of the key things that are necessary in order to manage the insomnia. And so we'll get into that a little bit more. All right. So Vata definitely plays a role anytime you're feeling anxious, anxiety, nervousness, worry, overwhelm. Many people are overwhelmed. If you've got a job in the United States, you're probably overwhelmed with it because there's so much pressure put on you. You have so much to do, and you feel like you have so much to do that can be overwhelming. And that overwhelm, you take it to bed with you at night. This too is Vata dosha imbalance. Now, bear in mind, I'm talking about Vata Vikruti here, which means the disturbance of the dosha. You can have a Vata Prakruti, a nature that is Vata, and not have the sleep challenge. But if anybody of any constitution can have a Vata Vikruti, a Vata disturbance, that ultimately leads to insomnia. So I think that's very important to understand. Anybody of any constitution, chances are if something traumatic happened in your life that day, you're going to have difficulty sleeping that night. That's a good example of a Vata imbalance. But if you have a Vata nature, a Vata Prakriti, you are prone to more sensitivity in that dosha. Therefore, it doesn't take as much trauma to cause a sleep disturbance. So I think that's important to note too. People with a Vata nature, Prakruti, are more likely to have chronic sleep problems than other doshas. But anybody can have a Vata imbalance. All right. So there's the Vata type anxiety, and we've talked about that. There's also a Pitta type anxiety. And so a Pitta type anxiety is what happens when the mind is active but focused on trying to solve a problem. People with a Pitta nature, they have a lot of fire in their mind, and fire burns through information and tries to create clarity. People with a Pitta nature tend to have more clear thinking, more clear thoughts, very focused, directed, and they have a strong will, which means that when a problem is in front of them, they want to solve that problem and move beyond it. It's the nature of Pitta. All right. Now, what happens at night for Pitta is if a problem has arisen during the day, they're still working on it at night. They're thinking, how can I solve this problem? What is the solution to this? I could do this and I could do that, or I could do this and I can do that. There's many possibilities, and the mind is working on the problem. And that working on the problem creates heat inside the body. It creates heat inside the mind. Inside the mind, that can keep you awake. But the experience in the body is that it makes you feel hot. And when it makes you feel hot, then temperature becomes irritating to you. Covers become irritating. You may feel too hot at night. And of course, this is even worse if it really is hot at night. So if it really is hot at night and you are trying to sleep and your mind is working overtime on trying to solve a problem, that just generates more heat, and that's more of a problem. Okay? So that's a Pitta type insomnia. It is not as common as Vata. It is not as chronic as a Vata type of an insomnia. So it's more of an acute insomnia, a short-term insomnia to solve problems. Of course, people who are executives always have problems to solve. Therefore, they may be having these multiple acute episodes of insomnia because there's always a problem somewhere in an organization that requires some solving. All right, so that becomes an issue for them. Now, many people who are Pitta in nature, who have insomnia, may have a combination insomnia of Vata and Pitta. That's not uncommon either. And so this is where they're worried about something and they have chronic worry. It's a level of anxiety that's in them, and their solution to the anxiety is to try to solve the problem. And so it may be that this goes on for a long period of time. So you can also have a combination Vata Pitta insomnia. It's a little harder to address. Vata insomnia by itself is more of an anxiety, but it's not that it's not hard to correct. It actually is quite hard to correct. It's an insomnia that you feel in your body, feel in your mind, but you don't necessarily understand it. The Vata Pitta type insomnia, the Pitta person does understand it, and they're worried about something. We'll just use the executive as an example because we talked about that before. The executive who is afraid that their company is not going to succeed, they're having financial problems, they're worried about that, they're thinking about the impact on all of their employees. It also could be the Pitta person at work who's afraid of losing their job. The Pitta worker afraid of losing their job is also overwhelmed and is trying to solve the problems at night. So Vata, the main dosha, Pitta, usually the secondary dosha in insomnia. Now let's talk about what to do about it. All right, how do you deal with it? Well, remember, I dealt with insomnia for 7 years, from 1987 to 1994, as a result of my rhythms being disturbed in my nervous system and in my brain as a result of Lyme-type autoimmune disease. If you want to know more about my journey through that, and also more about how I healed myself and how you can heal yourself, the full story is in a book that I wrote called Healing Your Life, Lessons on the Path of Ayurveda. And the first chapter of that is my own journey. And the rest of the book is a self-help book on Ayurveda, getting to know your constitution, getting to know the nature of imbalance, and how to use your senses properly. All of that's important, but it goes through my whole story. The short of it is I didn't sleep, and I needed to figure out a solution. Now, the way in which I stayed alive during that 7 years was through a practice called Yoga Nidra from 1987 to 1994. was in an altered state. Yoga Nidra is an altered state of consciousness. It's not a specific practice or a way of doing a practice. It's a way of getting into an altered state of consciousness in which you're not asleep, but you're not in your ordinary waking state either. And in that state, your body and your mind are receiving a tremendous rest, an incredible rest, a rest unlike any rest you've probably ever had, because even when you sleep, your mind tends to be active. So the practice of Yoga Nidra is actually a practice that gives you a deeper rest than sleep. All right, so that was when I discovered Yoga Nidra in 1987, practiced it all the way through, 3 hours a day, by the way, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon, and 1 hour in the evening for 7 years. Sometimes at night, I would spend most of the night in Yoga Nidra. So it wasn't just 1 hour in the evening. Sometimes it would be many hours in the evening. I'll come back to that, all right? But let's go through some of the things that you can do. So the first thing is diet and lifestyle. Has to be designed in order to balance the Vata dosha. So that means really nourishing yourself well. If you're nourished well, you're going to have greater stability inside yourself. And stability means less motion. Less motion means the body and mind settle down at night more easily. All right? So how do you do that? You have to nourish yourself properly. Everything we know in Ayurveda. So that means that you're going to be eating more nourishing foods, foods that have a heavy quality, like root vegetables. If you're a vegetarian, you're going to be, as opposed to the leafy greens, you're going to be having grains and nuts. These also have a heavier quality to them. You have to take the time to eat the nourishing foods. Now, in addition, you have to digest them well, which means you've got to slow down and you've got to sit while you eat. Take the time to actually take a moment to say grace, be present with your food. Slowing down during the day to eat your food will help you slow down at night in order to go to sleep. So make every meal an opportunity for a meditation. Think of it as meditating your eating, quieting your eating. If you live a quieter life, you will sleep better at night, all right? So proper diet and proper lifestyle according to Ayurveda in order to balance the doshas. Now we all run around a lot, don't we? Right? We're running here, we're running there, we're running everywhere. All that motion slows things, speeds things up, makes it harder to slow down. Ask yourself, what can I do to slow down? Maybe you're busy taking the kids to school and to soccer practice and to the different places. Can carpools be arranged? Can you work with other people? Can you ask for help so that you can get the rest you need? Nurture yourself. Once a week, do something incredibly nourishing for yourself, like get a massage. Or maybe it's a warm bath, right? Oil your own body and then slip into the warm bath. And once a week, really nourish yourself. That is so important. So if you nourish yourself, you cultivate the heavy quality, the stable quality, and this stabilizes the Vata dosha. Use all your senses properly. This is also very important. Use all your senses properly, which means that you don't want too much motion through your eyes, your ears. So for instance, if you're watching really fast-paced television or movies at night, it's going to be more difficult to sleep. If you're listening to fast-paced music at night, it's going to be difficult to sleep. So do something a little slower. Read a book instead of watch a movie at night. And listen to quieter music instead of upbeat dance music. These are just things to think about, because how we use our senses affects our mind. In fact, the senses, your eyes, your ears, your nose, even what you taste and what you touch, these feed directly into your mind. And if you're taking in a lot of stimulation through your senses, your mind will have a hard time settling down. You've got to take in less stimulation. Think of what you can do in order to allow that to happen, right? Now, Ayurveda says that the misuse of your senses is one of the prime causes of disease. So you can see how important it is to use your senses properly. But the ultimate cause of disease in Ayurveda is forgetting our true nature as spirit. Because when we forget our true nature as spirit, we get caught up in the dramas of life, and it's those dramas that are keeping us awake. Those dramas could be work-related, they could be family-related, relationship-related, they could be dramas, and it's understandable, about the people we've lost in our lives, the real traumas. But Ayurveda says that when we remember our true nature as spirit, we remember the spiritual nature of all of existence. And when we do that, we don't get caught up in the drama of life. We become the witness of life. And when we are the witness of life, our emotions are at peace. Our mind is at peace. This is why meditation is so important. And the practice of Yoga Nidra. The proper practice of Yoga Nidra will take you to that place of being the witness of your own experience, the witness of your body, the witness of your mind, but you are not your body, you are not your mind. And when you have that realization, then you realize your true nature as spirit. And the peace that comes over you with that will help you sleep beautifully and calmly and peacefully. So that's very important. A few more tips. You've got to go to sleep at you've got to wake up at the same time every morning, whether you sleep well or not. This is the cardinal rule. So many people who do not sleep well wind up sleeping in and sleeping late. And if you sleep in and sleep late, because maybe you fall asleep too late, well, what that does is it disturbs your rhythm. Your body works on rhythms. Vata depends on those rhythms. If you make sure you get up, let's say at 6 o'clock every morning, all right? You get up whether you slept or not. After a day or two of not sleeping, you will be tired and you will fall asleep and you will start getting into a rhythm. Set that alarm, wake up at 6 o'clock. You do want to go to bed at around 10 o'clock at night. That'll give you a good 8 hours of sleep. A lot of people are going to bed too late and you've got to work your way back. So I would suggest that you go back from 1 o'clock to 12:30, get used to 12 o'clock, 11:30, 11 o'clock, 10:30 until you get to 10 o'clock. So this is a general rule. There are some nuanced differences I talk about in the book, Healing Your Life, about different doshas and what time they should go to bed, what time they should wake up. But that's the gist of it. And I think that that'll help you a lot if you do that. Now, I mentioned Yoga Nidra. Just another word about that. Yoga Nidra is different than progressive relaxation. Progressive relaxation, where you go through your body and you identify different parts of your body and you relax them. This is the common way today that people are entering into the state of Yoga Nidra. That's progressive relaxation, and it's a beautiful practice. It is very relaxing, and you may in fact fall asleep while doing it. Well, that's great. If you have insomnia, that's a wonderful thing. I want you to know that Yoga Nidra is actually a state of being awake and aware. So if you fall asleep, you are not in the state of Yoga Nidra. Some of you know that I put out a CD called Yoga Nidra and Self-Healing, and that's available on Amazon and other places, iTunes. You're welcome to download that. And the goal is really to stay awake. But look, if you fall asleep, get a good night rest, okay? That helps you too. But nothing will help you as much as going into the state of Yoga Nidra. So try to stay awake. In fact, trying to stay awake will many times take the pressure off of you to sleep at night. You know what I mean. You're tossing, you're turning, you're looking at the clock, you think it's 2 o'clock. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do tomorrow? I've got a meeting at 9. How am I going to function? Well, if you go into the state of Yoga Nidra and you're being told, don't go to sleep, that actually may help you sleep, right? But really, to get into the state of Yoga Nidra, you need to know that that's a wakeful state. There's a lot more I'll talk about that. I do believe I've done a Facebook Live on that, and if not, I will do one soon. I have a Yoga Nidra training that is coming up in San Francisco, March 14th through 17th, and one in the Bahamas at the Shivananda Yoga Retreat. You can go on our website and you can learn more about that. That'll be, I think it's March 26th to about the 1st of April. All right, a couple of more notes, and then I'm going to take your questions. So a simple home remedy I want you to know about if you're having a hard time falling asleep, and this might even help you if you're having a hard time staying asleep, all right? A very simple home remedy, very general. Of course, we make changes according to the dosha for each person, but this is a good place for you to start at home if you don't have professional help. I want you to go and get some raw milk. If you can get raw milk here in California, we can get it at the supermarket. Raw milk is best. If you can't get raw milk, go ahead, go get some organic, unpasteurized milk would be better. I'm sorry, unhomogenized milk, like the Strauss family unhomogenized milk would be better. And then least of all, the organic milk that you see in the stores. The raw milk is special because it hasn't been processed and has some unique qualities, but the other milks have it, just not as much. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to take that raw milk and I want you to bring it up to the boiling point and then let it cool down. When you boil it to the boiling point, it actually makes it more of a sedative. Then you let it cool down to drinking temperature. Now, before you bring it up to that boiling point, go ahead and put into it between a quarter, or rather between an eighth and a quarter teaspoon of nutmeg. Let that just come up to a boil and cool down. But in addition to that, you're going to put in a quarter to an eighth of a teaspoon of ginger and 1 teaspoon of an herb called ashwagandha. I wrote about ashwagandha in our Facebook group the other day. Ashwagandha is also a wonderful sedative for your nervous system. Okay, so 1 teaspoon of ashwagandha. Bring it all the way up to the boiling point and let it cool down. Once it's cooled down, stir it up and sip it at night. If you feel the need to sweeten it, you can go ahead and put a little sweetener in it. Use something healthy like maple syrup or a little bit of jaggery, and drink that down and just enjoy that as a cup, but maybe a half an hour before you go to bed. It's going to sedate your nerves. You're going to sleep much better, much better. So go ahead and try that. It's a beautiful remedy, so much better than the sleeping medications that are out there. All right, so I really want to advise you to do that. I want to let you know that I do have a Facebook group that you can be a part of, and I post in it often, and so do many other people. And it's called Ayurveda Yoga Nidra and Ayurvedic Yoga Therapy with Dr. Mark Halpern. And if you go in your Facebook group, go into your Facebook page, you can look for that group and you can join that group, and you can be a part of our discussions and the exploration of so many different topics that I approach on there. Now I want to take a few of your questions. Prakar says, I suffer from anxiety. And I'm not going to go through all the details of it because they're kind of personal, but you want to know what you can do. You say you sleep well, which is great, but there's some fear, becoming anxious for no reason. You get anxious for no reason, and you get up early, and then you don't get a good night's sleep. So you get that early morning awakening, and that makes you even more restless. How do I address this anxiety sleep cycle, which has been worse in the last 2 years? My basic constitution is Pitta with Vata is what I know. Well, that's probably what's going on. You probably have that Pitta Vata combination. All right. So how do you address it? All right. You're a Pitta person. You got this Vata Pitta imbalance. So I think probably I started to address this already in my discussions, because I got to the treatment before I actually, before you wrote your question. But I want to make sure that you feel as though your question may have already been answered already. And so do the routines I talked about. Drink the milk for most people. I do see that you just wrote milk in there. How do you replace milk? Because milk may not be good. All right, well, there's nothing that replaces cow's milk that has the same exact properties of cow's milk. Goat's milk can be used, and that would be the next milk to use. And if you're not using an animal milk, then the heavier of milk alternatives like oat milk can be utilized, almond milk can be utilized. But I really want to help everybody to understand they are not even close in terms of the qualities they have that are going to sedate your nervous system. All right. See if you can do that with the milk or goat's milk. You can also try, if you have a hard time digesting milk, you can try to dilute it with 50% water. That will make it much less heavy in your body. All right, and that can be helpful. And if you've never tried this before, when you add your ginger to the milk, it really digests the milk well. And you might not have the problems that you did have before when you were taking milk. You also might not have them if you're using a high quality milk. All right. And some people now use a form of milk, I think it's called A2 milk, that has a little different protein in it. You can look for that as well. It seems to cause people fewer problems. Now, I do want to emphasize that if a person has gone through a lot of trauma and hasn't been sleeping well, getting professional support can be a really important part of the plan. So you might want to talk to a Western psychologist if you have deeper psychological issues that you're aware of. Talking about it is very good. Going to an Ayurvedic counselor, practitioner, or a doctor who does that kind of work can also support you doing psycho-spiritual counseling. I think that's very important as well. So I want to emphasize that you can do both of these things at the same time. You might have to resolve the traumas. So try that milk. preparation that I talked about. Also, this is for everybody. Try turning the lights off an hour before you go to bed. And if necessary, if you're having severe insomnia, turn the lights off an hour before bed and go by candlelight. All right, and go by candlelight and try to use a very dim light if you can to read by. I know that's not great for your eyes, but you don't want to use the bright lights at night. Your rhythms of your brain are very tied into light. And so if you turn the lights off, you will fall asleep earlier. Think about what happens if you go camping. If you go camping and you are in nature and you're living with the rhythm of the sun, when that sun goes down, your nervous system starts to settle. And then all you're doing is you're living by the campfire. When you're living by the campfire, you start getting tired. Then you feel like going to sleep, and you sleep beautifully at night. All right, unless being outdoors gives you anxiety. But if it doesn't, you sleep beautiful at night because of the change in light. So bringing more candlelight in if you can, and maybe reading by candlelight or just relaxing by candlelight an hour before bed, that's going to help you tremendously as well. Okay, so I hope that helps. Boy, we have so many questions. If you can't have nightshades, including ashwagandha, what herb would you suggest to replace it with in the middle of the night? Instead of ashwagandha, you can use an herb called Shankapushpi, Convolvulus evolvulus, that's its Latin name. So Shankapushpi has similar properties to ashwagandha, nice sedative for your nervous system, and you can look for that one. All right. Prakar said if you get the upset stomach, I answered that already about the milk. All right. Another question that came up is, I wake up at 2:30 in the morning and practice pranayama, asana, meditation for 2 hours. Do you think that's okay? It's a great time for my practice, but I'm only getting about 6 hours of sleep a night. So what do you do when you wake up in the middle of the night? You have a lot of options, and you got to find the one that works for you. And the first thing that I recommend is that you're the type of person that has the early morning awakening, get out of bed. Get out of bed. Don't lay there and toss and turn, and start getting frustrated. That's not going to help you. Get yourself out of bed. Now it's a question of what you do when you're out of bed, and you can have all kinds of options. Now, if you are trained and practiced meditation or yoga nidra, would be a great practice to do. You can go somewhere else. You go to another bed, another floor, go in the living room, on the couch. Do yoga nidra is a wonderful thing to do in a different environment, or sit in front of your altar and do meditation. You don't have to do it for 2 hours, but do it for a while so that everything settles down, and then go back to bed. Go back to bed. Do I think it's okay to do pranayama? A lot of pranayama, depending upon how it's done, is stimulating to the nervous system. So I would be cautious with pranayama. A small amount of alternate nostril breathing, Anuloma Vilomana, would be okay. And then you do your meditation following that. But I would not get involved in Kapalabhati and stronger practices unless you're living a yogic lifestyle and your intention is to get up at 4 in the morning or 2:30 in the morning and do pranayama, in which case you're not really experiencing insomnia, you're just in a different program. And you're doing very, very strict yoga practices and it's part of your sadhana, in which case it's perfectly okay to do those practices. And you're getting 6 hours of sleep a night. That's a lot better than a lot of people. Remember, we need at least 7. 8, I think, is really ideal. And so 6, you're probably experiencing some tiredness. So you want to work on these practices the way that I've talked about them so far. We have another question here. I'm not quite sure what it was. Could something contribute to reflux and night sweats? Well, if you're not sleeping well, again, your health is compromised. It could increase GERD. It could increase night sweats at night. Night sweats at night have so many causes, and I'm hesitant to tell you it's just related to sleep. I always think that somebody with night sweats at night should be evaluated by an Ayurvedic doctor or a medical doctor just to make sure there's no other underlying pathology for the night sweats. That having been said, when you can't sleep and you get frustrated and emotions rise, people do sweat, and people do get night sweats at that time. So that's not uncommon to happen. All right, I want to thank you. Let's see, I think I've covered most of the questions that I've been handed. Oh, there's one more. I bike 50 miles on the weekend. Should I stop? Oh my. If you're having a hard time sleeping, a lot of people, when they have a hard time sleeping, exercise more. And they say, if I exercise, I'm going to sleep more. There is truth to that to a point. All right. If you exercise more, your body and muscles will be fatigued and you'll sleep more. But then it goes on to being too extreme. And when it's too extreme, what happens is, yes, you're tired, but then your body gets addicted to that level of excitement, all right, to that level of stimulation. When it gets addicted to that level of stimulation, then when you're not biking, and it's not shortly after you're biking, there's more movement inside your body. And this goes along with the principle of Vata, that motion begets more motion. So if you do extreme motion at night, the mind will become more mobile. So yeah, 50 miles on a weekend, every weekend, probably too much. Once in a while, maybe it's okay. And same thing with long distance running and other extreme sports. I don't recommend it for people who are experiencing insomnia. Another question just came to me. If you do go back to bed after waking at 2:30 and doing meditation, should you still get up at 6? Absolutely. Absolutely. Get up at 6 o'clock. Let that start to become a routine. With balancing Vata, everything should be a routine. Your eating times should be a routine, at least 3 times a day for Vata. Should be a regular routine at the same time. And your waking time and your sleeping time should also be at the same time. Try that. I think it's going to help you all a lot. All right. Between that, with the milk that we've talked about, and with using your senses properly, with dimming the lights or using candlelight, all these things are going to help you tremendously. My great wish for all of you is wellness. It truly is. That if you can find balance inside yourself, then your mind will be at peace, your body will be at peace. And I know that something else is going to happen too. And that's that your heart is going to be open. And when your heart opens, it only opens really when we're healthy. So when your heart opens, you learn to love more, you express that love more. You will have more satisfying relationships, more satisfying friendships. You will feel something inside your own heart that you can't feel in any other way. So I know that sleep is an important part to that, and I wish you well with that. I want to let you know, speaking of the heart, that I'll be doing a program, a free program coming up. And it is going to be broadcast, but not on Facebook Live, at least not yet. It's not intended to be. It's going to be through our college's webinar system. We call it VedaWeb for fun. And it is it'll be broadcast out. It's a 90-minute program called Living and Loving Through the Heart. And you're all welcome to come. It'll be a 90-minute program. It's all about the heart and opening your heart and living in a way that is from the heart. And so that's coming up. I think it's March the 14th or March the 16th. Go to our website, the college's website, and you'll see that there. And you can call the college to get a link in order to link into the live webinar. And it's going to be free. All right. So our college's phone number is 530-478-9100, 530-478-9100. You can go online, and you can also get a toll-free number that you can call as well to call the school and sign up for that. And the final thing I want to let you know is that if you want to study Ayurvedic medicine and you want to become a practitioner, I hope you would consider studying at the California College of Ayurveda. We started in 1995. We're the oldest school of Ayurvedic medicine outside of India. And we have a beautiful campus in Northern California where we have Panchakarma Center that is residential that you can stay for up to 30 days. We have herbal gardens that are here, teaching medicine gardens. We have meditation gardens. We have beautiful outdoor classroom. We have many classrooms as well in our main facility. So I'd welcome you to come and join us for a tour sometime. Many, many blessings to all of you. And thank you once again. I'm so deeply honored that you took the time to be here today. Namaste.